Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. It's early November, and here in Connecticut, at least for me, that means it is time to plant garlic. So garlic is one of my favorite vegetables to grow, partly because it's so easy to grow. I have historically had a lot of trouble growing root vegetables. I don't really do well with onions, I don't do well with carrots. Garlic is the exception, and garlic always seems to do really well for me. It's very easy because, at least in my experience, I have not found garlic to be bothered by pests at all. I guess garlic is more used, if anything, to repel pests away from other plants. And so it's not really something, at least as I said in my experience, where I've had to worry about pests eating my garlic. I also really love growing garlic because it lasts so long into the winter for me. So this garlic here is garlic that I grew and harvested this past summer. It's still in completely fine condition. It's just as good as it was when I harvested it back in July. And I've got a lot more stored in my garage that will last me. It probably will only last me into January, but that's not because the garlic will go bad. That's because I'm going to eat it all and run out of it. So I'm hoping this year to be able to grow a little bit more garlic than I did this past year. So for those reasons, garlic, I would say, is one of the most rewarding crops, at least in my experience, to grow. Today we're going to be planting two types of garlic. I have here, this is my German white. Sometimes you'll see it called German extra hardy. I think those varieties, I'm dropping garlic here. I think those varieties are pretty much interchangeable. They're either two different names for the same variety or two varieties that are extremely similar. You'll see some disagreement in the gardening community about which it is. But this is one that I have consistently grown every year since I started growing garlic, and it has consistently done well for me. One benefit of this particular garlic is that it is a hardneck variety. Now, I'm calling that a benefit. It can really kind of go either way depending on your specific growing conditions in your area. I personally prefer growing hardneck garlic because I find that it's more reliable in my area. It tends to yield better, in my experience, than softneck garlic. Additionally, the real reason that I really love growing hardneck garlic is because it produces garlic scapes. Garlic scapes are a bonus harvest that you get only from hardneck garlic. Softneck varieties don't produce the scapes. And, probably about a month or so before it's time to harvest your garlic heads, your garlic plants will shoot up a scape, which is basically garlic's version of a flower. We'll go into a little more detail about that later in the summer. I do have some videos that I have filmed. I think I filmed one this past summer and one a couple years ago, talking in a lot more detail about garlic scapes. So I'll link those below in case you're interested in that. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just mentioning that as a benefit of hardneck varieties because it's a bonus harvest and it's so delicious. Now, in addition to my hardneck German white garlic, I'm also going to be growing some elephant garlic. Let me put all this garlic down before I end up dropping it all anyway. So in here I have a bucket of elephant garlic. I grew elephant garlic in my garden last year for the very first time. As I said, I had never grown it before. Now I'm here in Connecticut, I'm in zone 6, and what I have heard is that elephant garlic in general prefers to grow in a slightly warmer environment than what I have here. I decided to go ahead and give it a try because, if you don't try, then you never know, right? And you are guaranteed to not get a harvest of delicious elephant garlic without trying. So I did try it last year. I will say the cloves are fairly large. They're not as large as I was hoping for elephant garlic, but I'm going to plant some of those. I'm going to plant the largest cloves again this year, and I'm going to see what we get from that. Now, elephant garlic is not actually a true garlic. I believe it's a type of leek. It's at least in the leek family. And it has a similar flavor to garlic, although slightly milder, but you can use it really interchangeably with garlic. I really like elephant garlic because the cloves are so big. If you've ever had a recipe that calls for a lot of garlic, or you're doing a garlic preservation project, it can get a little tedious to peel so many of those of those small cloves of garlic, where elephant garlic, produces the larger cloves, which means less peeling. So I'm hoping to be able to get elephant garlic to grow successfully in my garden. As you can see, I was successful in the sense that I did get a harvest. I'm hoping this year we will get a little bit larger of a yield and hopefully larger cloves. So this bed here is where I'll be planting my garlic. You can see I have bush beans here, which have been not fully killed. We had a very light frost last night, and they were, as you can see, damaged but not completely killed. Tonight we're supposed to get a pretty significant frost that should kill these completely. I do have some lettuce growing in here. This will not be damaged by tonight's frost, but I'm going to try. I'm not sure if I'll be able to be entirely successful with this, but I'm going to try to plant my garlic kind of in between the lettuce and allow the lettuce to keep growing. Honestly, that's probably not really going to work because I am going to have to cover the garlic with a little bit of compost. But I'm going to try to do the best I can, and we'll see what happens. My priority here is the garlic, so if the lettuce has to get damaged to plant the garlic, then probably what I'll end up doing is just, if it seems like it's going to get damaged, I'll just go ahead and harvest all that lettuce, and we'll have a nice baby green salad tonight. So I'm not going to pull out these bean plants or anything like that. I'm just going to let them stay here. I'm just going to kind of, after I plant the garlic, lay these over the bed like a mulch, and when the frost comes and kills them tonight, they'll die and they will help mulch my garlic. So when you're planting garlic, what you're going to want to look for to choose which garlic to plant is the largest individual cloves. Now this head of garlic may not be one of the largest heads of garlic that I grew, but it only has 4 cloves in it, and you can see that these individual cloves are really large. So the idea is that each of these individual cloves, I'm going to split them up, I'm going to plant them individually, and each of these cloves will turn into an entire head of garlic throughout the winter and the spring, and then next summer it will get harvested. And each of these cloves should turn into a head with, a minimum of 4 cloves up to maybe 6 cloves of garlic for this variety. Different varieties of garlic will produce different numbers of cloves. So you want to choose the largest cloves of garlic because those have the most energy stored in them, and that's going to lead to ultimately the largest possible garlic head to be formed next summer. So I went through my garlic harvest and I picked out the heads that had the largest individual cloves. I'm going to go ahead and split these up, and then we are going to plant each one individually. So when you split them, you want to leave as much of this paper wrapper on as possible, because this is part of the garlic heads, or part of the garlic cloves protective layer. It's going to prevent excessive moisture or pathogens or anything like that from having contact with the garlic. That being said, if some of the paper does come off, I would still plant my garlic anyway. You just have a higher chance of success the more paper that you keep attached. So we're going to try to do that. I'm going to go ahead and break up these garlic heads, and we are going to choose the largest of the cloves to plant. So with this bed here, I'm going to leave a little bit of space next to the trellis so I can plant some plants to grow up this trellis next year. I also want to try to leave a little row of open space in the back so I can plant some other plants in the back. So I'm basically going to fill up the front a little more than 3/4, maybe the front like 80-90% of this bed, just leaving a little strip on the back free. So here is our German white garlic. I'm going to start with this and just lay it out in the bed where I want it to go. So here you can see I laid the garlic out roughly 6 inches in all directions. In some places, may have gone a little closer than that. I wasn't really precise. So I went up through here. This is 70 German white garlic cloves, and this last little bit here will be a couple rows of elephant garlic. So when it comes to this elephant garlic, I'm going to plant this basically the same way, except I'll give it slightly more space. Now, I think I mentioned before that this elephant garlic variety that I grew is actually a soft neck variety. I think that elephant garlic does come in both varieties. I actually expected mine to be a hard neck, and I was surprised when I didn't get scapes from it last summer. So I think this is a soft neck variety. Now you'll see that some of my elephant garlic did make cloves like this. I can split it up. Some of it formed like this, where it formed one solid clove. And I think this is a fairly common thing with elephant garlic. Sometimes it needs multiple seasons to split and make the cloves. So I've heard from some people that always happens. I mean, clearly that's not the case though, because I have some that did form multiple cloves. So the garlic that made a single clove like this, I'm going to plant the whole clove, and we're going to see what happens with that next year. And I'm also going to plant some of these split cloves as well. I'm not going to plant everything in this bucket because this was my whole elephant garlic harvest, and I want to save some of this for eating. but I'm going to probably try to get about 3 rows of elephant garlic out of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay those out, and then we will get planting. So I'm just going to look through here and try to choose the largest cloves to plant because, as I said, similarly with the other garlic, the largest cloves will give me the largest harvest. My elephant garlic last year also produced these tiny little corms. So my understanding is that that is another way that elephant garlic reproduces, is these are basically almost like tiny seeds, but these formed on the roots. So in addition to the cloves that we got from the garlic, we also got these tiny little corms. So I'm also going to plant a couple of these. I don't anticipate getting a large harvest from these. I think this will most likely take a couple years to give me a full-size harvest, but I am curious to see what happens. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space to plant a couple of these too. In this little corner here, I'm going to plant 4 of these little corms. I'm going to space these fairly closely because I don't think that they will be that large this year, and we'll see what happens when they come up in the spring. So I take it back. I actually found 2 more of the little corms. So I planted 6 of them, but I just planted those pretty closely in the corner because, as I said, I don't think that those will take up a lot of space. So when it comes time to actually plant your garlic, you're going to notice that your garlic clove has a pointy end and a flat end. The pointy end is where the stem will come out of and the leaves. The flat end is where the roots will come out of. So you want to plant it with the flat end down and the pointy end up. So generally when you plant your garlic, what you want to do is bury it in the soil so that the top of your garlic is covered by about 1 inch to maybe 2 inches of fresh soil. So I'm going to plant all this in this garden bed. I'm going to plant it so it's just barely below the soil. And then we are going to get a load of compost, and we're going to cover everything to bring the level up to about 1 inch to 2 inches above the top of my garlic. And as I'm saying that, realizing that covering this bed with compost is going to completely cover the lettuce. So I'm not going to pull the lettuce out, but I think what I'm going to do is harvest this as baby greens, and then we'll do a little experiment. I'm not going to, as I said, pull out the lettuce. My hope is that maybe in the spring, the compost on top of the lettuce roots will help it to overwinter, and maybe in the spring we'll get a little bit of more growth from that. But as I said, that's not the main point of this. My focus here is the garlic, so any little bonus that we get from the lettuce will just be that, a bonus. So I have everything laid out in this garlic bed here. I know it's very hard to see because I've got a lot going on here, but we have 70 cloves of the German white garlic laid out, and then I think 15 cloves, full-size cloves of the elephant garlic, plus the 6 little corms at the end. So while that may not be enough for a full year's worth of garlic harvest for us, it will definitely be a lot, and I'm really excited to see how it grows and harvest it next year. But first, before we harvest, we have to get planting. So you can just see I'm digging a little hole, putting the garlic flat side down, and just very lightly covering it with the soil. So I got all that garlic planted. Now I just need to harvest this baby lettuce, and then I am going to grab a couple wheelbarrow fulls of compost and spread 1 inch to 2 inches of compost over this bed. So we got a nice lettuce for a nice little salad for tonight. So we will definitely enjoy that. So I got the garlic all covered with a nice thick layer of compost. Now I'm not going to worry about watering this garlic. It's fall right now. The weather's really cool and just going to get colder. This soil it's not really moist, but it's not super bone dry either. Now, if spring comes and we haven't had a lot of snow all winter, we haven't had a lot of rain all winter, I will go ahead and water it if it seems like it's going to be really dry for an extended period of time. But for now, this should be fine. So the one last thing I do want to do for this garlic is to mulch it. I do want to cover it with a fairly thick layer of mulch. I want to protect it during the winter from weather fluctuations, extreme cold, things like that. So what I'm going to use for my mulch material is fallen leaves. I mean, as you can see around me, You know, I basically live in the woods, so I have an abundance of fallen leaves that make a really nutrient-rich free mulch. So I'm just going to gather up some leaves. I'm going to cover this garlic bed with a couple inches of fallen leaves, and then we're just going to let it be in the spring. We're going to watch for it to come up, and additionally you can see the bean plants there. I kind of tucked them over the bed, so those will get killed by the frost tonight, and those will just add to the mulch layer that this garlic has. So that's really all that I have to do for this garlic until spring. It's going to, and even then it's going to be basically very low maintenance. So we're just going to tuck this garlic in. We're going to let it develop a root system over the winter, and then in the spring, hopefully we'll see some beautiful green growth and eventually harvest some delicious garlic next summer. So thank you so much for hanging out with me in the garden today. It is so nice to get the garlic planted and so nice to actually check off something from the 2025 garden already. The sun is setting, as you can see behind me, so I'm going to hurry up and get this garlic mulched, and then I've got to head inside and make dinner. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.